Aloha and welcome to Better Government. I'm Representative Gene Ward and I'm here with Bob McDermott today, Representative McDermott from Eva Beach. And we're going to talk about how we are in the 2013 session. We're in fourth quarter if we're playing basketball or if you're in football. And if you're in weightlifting, the heavy lifting now, meaning that we're in the last stages of either nixing or passing a number of bills. What are some of the bills that the people out there should know about?
Well, Gene, thank you for inviting me. I'm privileged to be on your program.
We're part of the team, and this is our program. I'm just sort of kicking things off here for a bit.
If the folks at home don't know, you've been like a big brother to me for probably, over 20 years.
I don't think the people back home would know that. Well, hi to Kalama Valley. This is Eva Beach, my brother from Eva Beach.
Yeah, Gene got me started, mentored me, and has been a big help to me. So I appreciate that. So,
well, welcome back to the legislature.
Thank you.
You've had a hiatus for a few years, and you're a Navy League guy and
decade.
A Marine that's served in Desert Storm, I believe.
Desert Storm 1, that's correct.
So you've served your country. Now you're serving the people at Eva Beach.
Yes, sir.
And you've got an opinion on some of the issues. So why don't we throw out some of the things that Representative McDermott and Representative Ward would like to share with you before the final hours, some things that are coming down the line. Let's start with the easiest and the obvious. PLDC, killed it. It's dead. It's actually gone up to the governors, I think, for signature as we did the repeal for that. My warning on that one is that there are two DNA-like PLDCs for harbors and for schools, and those things are still lurking about. But the biggest thing in this fourth quarter is the season of gut and replace. It's the time when they take an existing, how would you say, unpopular particular bill but has the right heading, and they take another issue and stick it into that bill, and then they serve it up.
Right.
But some of the things that are straightforward and without any gut and replace yet is one of the favorite bills that I think you know a lot about, is the constitutional amendment. Why don't you tell us about what's going on before the people?
Well, sure, Gene. The constitutional amendment for early childhood education. This is so most people conceptually support early childhood education.
Who would be against it?
Who could? Apple pie, wave the flag, helping little children. My view on it is needs to be part of a holistic approach. And what I mean by that is we need to reform the entire, I don't want to say system, because if we use the term system, it'll never get done. So let's take a microcosm of a community.
Okay.
I'm going to use Nanakuli. They have a 31% dropout rate. Nanakuli High School, 31% dropout rate. That is kids who start in 9th and don't make it to the 12th grade. So 100 kids start out in 9th grade, 31 of them don't make it to graduation.
They never come back again.
Never come back. And that doesn't include the kids who are 12th graders that read at a 6th grade level, who get, I like to call it the Wesson Oil Diploma. We just kind of slide them on through. Just keep pushing them on through.
Why not canola oil?
Yeah, canola oil. But it happens, and it's true. But let's focus on the dropouts for a minute. So you're 31 of those kids out of 100. So let's say a graduating class is 300 kids that graduates. That means about 90 of them didn't make it. Out of that 90, 68%, so it's about 60 of those kids, guess where they go? To jail. 68% of our
no, we're not playing Monopoly where go
and
directly to jail.
These are statistics given to us by the Nonpartisan Legislative Reference Bureau. 68% of high school dropouts in Hawaii spend time in jail. 68%.
It's pretty obvious, the numbers.
Right. So there's a direct correlation between high school graduation, success, and jail, quite honestly. So early childhood education, while it's wonderful, does nothing when the kid is in 5th and 6th grade. Those effects are worn off long ago. And now you're in a failed system, a secondary school system, intermediate, secondary, high school system. And we're doing nothing to stop that hemorrhaging, to stop that failure. We have about 5 high schools in this state with dropouts over 20%. What I just talking about, 20 kids out of 100, 25 kids, 27, 31 kids, about 5 of them. And they're mostly on Oahu. That's a problem. And if you look at Campbell High School, we have 3,000 children, 3,000 at Campbell High School. It is like a college campus. bursting at the seams. But we want to start a new program?
Okay, back to the
Constitutional amendment. Okay. We're not doing the basics right, K through 12. We got schools bursting at the seams, and now we want to do something else? You know what? Maybe we should focus on the core responsibility of what we're supposed to do, get that right first, and then look at the early childhood education. Or in these communities that the constitutional amendment is focused on, it's focused on the low-income areas, the disadvantaged areas, which are the schools with the high dropout rates. Generally, there's a correlation between income. So if we say we want to help them, let's go in and do a pilot project and look at the whole system, pre through 12, and make the necessary reforms and work in that community instead of trying to do something district-wide. Because you'll never make reforms. So one of the problems with all the governors, Republican and Democrat alike, who've tried to make reforms, whether it's John Wahey, Ben Cayetano, or Linda Lingle, they all tried to make reform. They all tried to make reforms. And what happens is they are well-intended, good people. But what happens is they try and do it system-wide, and the elephant just stifles it. But if you take a small bite, say we're just going in and focusing on this community right here, and again, let's use Nanakuli.
Yeah, what would you do to Nanakuli, given what
I
you
would,
said?
well, that's perfect. I would do the whole leeward coast, Miley on to Makaha, and I would.
But they've already got early learning there.
No, but I would go in and focus and implement the Berman Report's recommendations from 1988. Now it's a little antiquated, but the principles are still the same. They have early childhood education, but they also have things at the secondary level, and they have VOTEC schools, career learning. You have a kid in high school, a child is 15 or 16 years old, has no interest in college, but is enamored with auto mechanics or masonry or building things with their hands. Why are we forcing that child, saying, well, you've got to learn these college disciplines? He doesn't want to be there, so he ends up dropping out and going down the wrong path. But if we do what they do on the mainland, and we have these vocational career schools, we say, okay, you go to school half a day in the morning, and you do good in auto mechanics. In the afternoon, you've got to get your basics, your reading, your math, your arithmetic, reading English, reading, writing, arithmetic, right? You get the three basics, and you do those so you can get some basic living skills and also learn a trade. You won't have discipline problems. They want to go to school. They want to be in auto shop. They want to learn. That's what they do on the mainland.
I think you're putting your finger on one thing that we do rather poorly, and that is until we're ready with a proven program, we say, everybody gets it all at once, and we go statewide.
We are telling every student in the state that they should go to college. Well, that's not the reality, because when your car breaks down tonight, where are you going to take it? To an auto mechanic who makes more than an entry-level teacher. Certainly a teacher from Teach for America, but an entry-level teacher is what, $41,000? Your good auto mechanic who's certified makes about $75 starting out. We need auto mechanics. We need carpenters. You need an electrician, don't you?
Yeah,
I know
sure.
that. So we need these things. There's nothing wrong or dishonorable about serving in a wonderful trade.
But at the same time, Bob, we shouldn't give the public the impression that everybody and their uncle is going to school, because right now we only have 22-point-something% of our population as college graduates. And if you recall Mr. Jim Lally with the Wai'ale'ale Project on Kauai, who read the census program, who said that if you have 1 year of college, not 4 years, just 1 year of college, you have $35,000 more per year, and you live 7 years longer. And that's where he started getting the program alive on Kauai, which he will expand to other programs. If you're a college, if you have any sense of going to college, whether you came out of prison or whether you're poor or whether you're bankrupt, if you want to go to college, he's going to give the scholarship on the Wai'ale'ale Project. And that's giving a person a chance to do the potential. But I agree with you. Look, if a guy wants to go into auto mechanics, don't force him to do these other things. But don't get the dropout rate so high, because, as you said, 68% are going off to prison. I mean, that's a tremendously high statistic.
To answer your question, you asked about the constitutional amendment. So it's a well-intended program, but we're not doing the basics right. I voted for it all along, but I'm going to vote against it on the final reading, and for two reasons.
I think a lot of us are leaning in that direction.
Yeah, the cost is unknown. It's unknown. There's estimates.
Openers are 125 million.
Yeah,
once it
well,
gets
we know
going.
what that means. Double it, triple it, you might get the real number, right? And we're going to spend all this new money, but we're not doing the basics correctly. So what is ever going to force us to do the basics correctly?
I would say learn from the examples of the mistakes of the past. And I'm going to go back to when it was War on Poverty. President Johnson had Head Start put together. It was $8 billion, and now I think it's up to probably $80 billion that we basically had a Head Start to get the early learning into sometimes families that were dysfunctional families that may not put an emphasis on education.
Right.
That was done by the Department. A survey was done by the Department of Health and written up over 2 years as a failure. $80 billion, and we didn't know what happened. The problem was, and this is where I have a real problem with the early learning, because those programs you talked about in the Waianae region have a Head Start program. HCAP has been doing it, but according to reports, only half of the kids eligible are actually attending that. The point being, and for decades, the correlation for student achievement has been one primary factor, and that is parental involvement. If you don't get the parents involved, I don't care how much money you put in front of them, how many iPads you put in front of them, the parents have got to be involved, because that's how they react, the expectations from that particular level. Unless we're going to do parental outreach in this early learning, I see no way how we can compare with even if we put in 125 million, how we're going to be able to match what otherwise, for billions of dollars, Head Start has not been able to do. So my sense is we have not built in what Head Start was not able to do. And now we're going to go and repeat the whole thing, to which your colleague and mine, Sam Sloan, said this is going to end up as a babysitting program, and it's going to cost a lot of money.
And quite honestly, a lot of our constituents would like a free daycare situation. That's what
we're working a lot of jobs to keep
right.
ends together.
People, and let's go back to the constitutional amendment again. Another reason that I've decided, I spoke with grave reservations about let the bill continue, but now I haven't seen this issue rectified, is I think the constitutional amendment, I know it discriminates against religious schools. That is, if you're a parent, I'm going to give you $500 a month to take your child to preschool, but you can't go to St. Anthony's in Kalihi because they have a nun teaching and she wears her habit, and because she wears her habit, that's her uniform, and there's a cross at the entrance to the school, it's unconstitutional. So we don't want your child going there. Okay, but you can go to the secular school, the Good Feeling School of Wichita, Pennsylvania. That's okay, but don't go to the religious school, or don't go to the Star of David School, which is a Jewish preschool. I'm making these names up because there is a religious tinge to it. So you can only take that and go to a secular institution. Well, if it can be private, why can't I go to wherever I want? They are discriminating against religious institutions. And not only that, but what happens is parents who send their children to preschool right now, who send their children to a religious preschool, they want their kids to get preschool, but they also want some values.
And some discipline that usually comes out of
inculcated,
the Catholic ones.
Inculcated through a faith-based learning curriculum, even if it's young. They can say their prayer before lunch. Radical things like that. Just radical. Say a prayer before lunch. You can't do it. So if the parent sends them there, now their parent's going to be faced with a choice. Well, I can continue to spend $500 a month for St. Anthony's in Kalihi, or I can send them to the Sea Star School for free. Where's the parent going to send them?
Free.
Free. You got 2 kids, it's $1,000 a month difference. So it's going to hurt religious schools. This is one time when the teachers union is against the bill because they feel we're not addressing the core needs of the K through 12. And the expense is extraordinarily, and they have some other issues as well. And then the Hawaii Catholic Conference is against it because they say this is, in essence, religious discrimination. So you have people on the left and the right who say this is not a good idea. And I agree. But more from the right side than the left.
You know, by your gesture, you kind of put something out that looked like a voucher, and because that's what really...
That's a dirty word. We don't say voucher.
But that's essentially why HSTA is having some real serious reservations. But we have been assured by Attorney General Louis that it is not a voucher program, but HSTA lawyers say it is a voucher program.
Well,
but my point of then is it's going to be that for the last 2 years before there was a teacher's contract, the governor's office and HSTA, the teachers, were at each other's throats. And this, I think, this issue is putting them back in that same polar position.
well, I'll tell you, in my view, you can call it a voucher, you can call it a school choice, you can call it whatever you want to call it. But you're giving money to parents and saying you can go to the school of your choice, except a religious school. That's where I have a problem.
So why you got to do a constitutional amendment then?
I don't know.
Because it's a private school, which, you know, it's interesting.
But they could have amended it to include religious schools, but they specifically exclude them in the language.
We already have programs for 4.5-year-olds,
Right.
and they don't need a constitutional amendment. Or is it 4 o'clock? Either we got
4-year-olds.
one for
Open
4-year-olds.
doors.
Open doors for 4-year-olds. We didn't have any constitutional amendment on that one. Now it's for 4.5-year-olds. There is a constitutional amendment. So that is a little bit of a rub and
So
irony.
it's ironic. People on the left don't like it. People on the right don't like it. And
But basically, on either side, they're concerned about education. And
Yes.
as a nation, Bob, look, honestly, as a nation, we have failed to keep up with the industrialized countries. We're 13th, 14th in math and science. We're lagging now in our economic development because of the economies of Asia that are growing. And they are producing patents left, right, front, and center. Even though we got Steve Jobs and we got Apple, we got creative entrepreneurial juices, we need that educational foundation to produce people who are unlimited in their capacity to produce, develop, create knowledge, synthesize history, and make something. But it's rather strange that we seem to be not knowing how to crack that nut. And this is one that, and you got to give the governor credit. Nobody's going to be against early learning. Early learning is true. Early learning takes place as you got 8 children. As soon as you started reading to your kids, that was your early learning. And that's before they're 4 years old. Hopefully by as soon as they come out of the womb, they should be having some kind of a nurturing process. And that's where, again, I said these studies indicate if the parents are involved, the kids get educated. If the parents aren't involved, they don't get educated. And that is the big variable. But look, we're not the Soviet Union. I can't tell you as a father what to do. But at the same time, hopefully I can nurture your kids when I do get them in school. And the logic is if you get them earlier, you're going to be hopefully to be able to break some of that dysfunction that's in the family. That's a whole bailiwick of social, psychological, cultural things that are very, very difficult to do in one program. Very difficult.
right.
But is that the only bill that you want to talk about?
No.
Constitutional amendment? What else is top of mind?
So on that one, just to close up the conversation, I had grave reservations because it appeared to be religious discriminatory to me. Discriminated against our largest private school operator in the state, which is the Catholic schools. And, you know, it's okay to have rights unless they're rights of religious freedom. And I want people to be able to worship whatever faith they want. I encourage people to worship because it gives them stability, values. All the world's great religions have redeeming qualities in them. And it gives them value, stability. They're generally good citizens. I'm not proselytizing, but I want them to have the freedom to do that. And I don't want them to be discriminated against. And we live in this body, and you know it because you're here with me. We are hostile to religious values. You know, we are hostile to people of faith. It's a dirty word to say you go to church. I mean, I
think as a nation, the political correct thing is to be secular, not spiritual. And the sacred cow is more of the separation of church and state, which I do believe in. But the church and state separation has been so the Church
Goes
of
one
England.
way.
But it was framed in a way that people, I think, don't historically get the whole context of when
We
the
could have
Church
an
of
hour on
England.
this one.
I know, it's a whole other program. But the point being that the Church of Pennsylvania and the Church of Virginia, they were jockeying in order to take over the Church of America, and they said, no, we are not
Right.
going to have. There's going to be a separation.
Each state had their
The
own
difficulty is
state religion.
exactly, and we said it's not going to happen, and it hasn't happened. And the irony is, so there would not be a church, or there would not even be a proliferation of religion. What's going on in religion in America? It's going downhill. Church attendance is all-time down. People spiritually is all-time missing. So in effect, we've done the opposite by having the
We're
separation of church
hostile
and state.
through the wall of separation should be high and impenetrable, and we're good at that on keeping religion out of the public square. I mean, you can't even, if you were asked to speak at Kaiser, you would not be allowed to get up and give a non-denominational ecumenical prayer of thanks that these children have made it through 12 years.
I bet they are in Boston right now for those who have been
yeah.
spared the,
But you're
the
not.
bombing.
If you said to the principal, "This is what I'm going to do," he'd have to say, "Gene, you can't do that." Now you could get up and do it yourself and ask for forgiveness later, but you're not allowed, quote unquote, to do that. But here we've seen bills where we've infringed upon religious freedom, religious organizations. We have told them, "No, you need to do it this way because we're smarter than you." And you know what I'm talking about.
Okay, let's shift gears into some of the more blatant infringements that get into our small business and our medium-sized business community. There is a bill that has legs and momentum that says if you buy a business in Hawaii, you will not, repeat, you will not sack any of the employees. You have to keep them. Does that make economic sense? Does it make control of you of the new business owner who purchased this business from somebody?
So here, no, it doesn't. So if you have a business of 100 people that's floundering, and if a mainland investor comes in and says, "I think I can save it. I have to invest $2 million, and I've got to restructure. We've got to eliminate 25 of these positions because they're duplicative, and the company was a mom and pop that grew too fast and got a little sloppy." Okay? I can do it, but only if I have the flexibility to right size. And if we say no, he says, "I can do it, I'm going to save 75 jobs. Because if I don't do it, they're going under." The state's now saying, "Nope, you either save them all or we lose them all." Okay, instead of losing 25 jobs, you're now going to lose 100 because he's not going to come in under those circumstances.
Or what would a smart businessman do before he sells his business?
Break it up into two or three.
He would make sure he had less than 100 employees to make
Yeah.
sure that it doesn't come under this law, which really means the infraction of intrusion, the blunt entry of government into business. In that example, to me, is exemplary. And I hope this bill doesn't see the light of day, but it's got legs, it's moving. And hopefully in the conference committee, and as I said earlier, we're in the gut and replace season. And the gut and replace season can always have these things. It doesn't even have to be that that bill dies. It can resurrect itself.
So
in another bill.
what we have is a bunch of lawyers down here, a bunch of people who've never been in the real world. And I don't mean to cast aspersions on my colleagues, but I mean, by and large, that's what I see over there, guys who've never broken a sweat. The only time they've broken a sweat is when the air conditioner in the faculty lounge broke. They want to dictate to business how to run their businesses. And they don't know anything about business. They don't know anything about raising money. They don't know anything about making a payroll. Just a couple of them do, and you know who they are, and I know who they are, and they stand up and say this is not good. But their colleagues don't listen to them because their colleagues are Pollyannas and they think they know better, and they think by passing a law they're going to cure the ills of the world. But all they do at the end of the day is make life harder and the economic realities harder on our working folks.
Let's talk about the cost of living. What are some of the things that are going to bump the cost of living of people in the beach and other places?
Energy constantly. We're constantly looking at ways to sneak in $1 here, $1 there on the cost of energy, whether it's your electric bill whether it's your gasoline bill. You know, people talk about the cost of living, Gene. The number one contributor to the cost of living in the state of Hawaii is not government. It's the cost of energy. The cost of energy in Utah is 8 cents a kilowatt hour. The cost of energy here is 34 cents a kilowatt hour, 4 times the amount. That's why when you watch the Super Bowl and they have a commercial, get a large Pizza Hut, $8.99 large pizza, and you call them up and say, I'd like the $8.99. They said it's not $8.99 in Hawaii, it's $13.99, because the cost of running his oven is 4 times more than it is in Utah.
And you'd want to talk about the Jones Act also for shipping
I support
supplies.
the Jones Act.
I'm
I'm a proud supporter of the Jones Act.
You want to talk about the cost of living and
I work for the Navy League. The Navy League supports the Jones Act. You're against the Jones Act.
No, I'm for the consumer who, because of the
Rust
extreme
buckets and slave ships?
everything in America is made no longer in America, including those ships. We have only enough time to give a last-minute
I
prognostication.
support the Jones Act for my friends out there.
What's your prediction?
I look like
for
a longshoreman. Come on.
Well, you're starting, how would you summarize what's coming up in the next 2 weeks when we sine die? You got 25 seconds.
We have worked to keep the bad ideas from getting out of here. The most painful of them, I don't think will see the light of day. A few ridiculous ones will, but not the colossally bad ideas that you and I fight against all the time. And I think we've given them a conscience about taxes and fees.
And hopefully the economy will remain robust, even though it's precarious. Anything beyond 2016, even Calbert Young has said we have to watch out for it. We have run out of time, but we haven't run out of energy. Thank you for viewing Better Government. Representative Bob McDermott, Representative Gene Ward saying aloha.